Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Nurse Practitioner Week. Here at Frontier University, we're celebrating Nurse Practitioner Week by having several of these type of sessions where we are providing information and giving CEUs. This session is about our Family Nurse Practitioner program. And the title of our Nurse Practitioner Week is Empower 2021, Creating a Culture of Caring.
And I am Dr. Catherine Arterberry. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I am the clinical director for the Family Nurse Practitioner Program.
And I'm Dr. Lisa Chappell. I'm the chair for the Department of Family Nursing. And Dr. Arterberry and I work together as a team to manage the FNP program at Frontier. We're joined by 3 students, 2 who are current students and 1 who's completed the program. And would you 3 students mind introducing yourself, starting with Karen Burke? Tell us where you are in the program and tell us where you live.
I'm Karen Burke. I live in Johnson City, Tennessee, which is about 100 miles northeast of Knoxville. I graduated in September. I passed my boards and I'm currently looking for a job.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Nikisha?
My name is Nikisha Gupton, and I am in my clinical portion of my program. I'm due to graduate in March. I live in a small rural town, Lewisburg. It's probably like 30 miles north of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Great. Thank you, Nikisha. And then Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm in my second to last clinical course of the program, and I'm hoping to graduate in December in like 5 weeks, which is exciting and scary all at the same time. I'm currently in Hawaii, living outside of like Honolulu.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And thanks to all 3 of you for being here this afternoon. So let's talk about the Family Nurse Practitioner Program. And here is our purpose statement. And I'm going to read it to you. The purpose of the Department of Family Nursing is to prepare family nurse practitioners to care for families residing in rural or other underserved areas by offering a structured, off-campus, community-based family nurse practitioner specialty track. This picture shows a group of students on campus to in what we call a circle up. That's one of the Frontier traditions where we come together at the end of the day and have a time of reflection where you can share your reflection with other students. We at Frontier have a pillar of our philosophy that is the culture of caring. And in the culture of caring, it contains such elements as communication and mutual respect and professionalism. And this culture of caring kind of drives our behavior and how students relate to us, how we relate to students, how everyone relates to each other. So it is a really important piece of our philosophy at Frontier. As a student, you would use your community as a classroom, studying from home to do all of the didactic work. And then you would travel to Versailles. We have a beautiful campus in Versailles, Kentucky. We'll have pictures of that in a few minutes. You come to Versailles 2 times as your time as a student at Frontier. Once at the very beginning when you come for what we call Frontier Bound. That's a 2.5-day time of orientation to the university. And then the second trip is about halfway through the program. You finish the didactic work, you're ready to go to clinicals, but there's a week of clinical intensive that students come to where they really make sure that they're prepared to go out and start their clinical hours. So 2 trips to campus during your time in the program. Some of the FNU achievements, we have over 80 years of experience teaching at the graduate nursing level, not only nurse practitioners, but nurse midwives. We have students and alumni in all 50 states in the United States. right now today we have an enrollment of 2,500 students, and Frontier is unique in that it is a nursing only school. So we don't have other departments that are at Frontier. We are nursing only, and we have graduated over 8,000 graduates. Some of the achievements of the Family Nurse Practitioner program is we have been ranked number 5 in the U.S. News and World Report that looked at online family nurse practitioner programs. So we're number 5 in the United States. We are the first and oldest FNP program in the United States, which began in 1970. We celebrated our 50th year anniversary for the FNP program in 2020. And our pass rates on the certification exam is kind of an objective measure of a school. And we have 2 certifications that students take when they graduate: American Association of Nurse Practitioners and the American Nurses Credentialing Center. And our pass rate is 99 to 100% in both of those organizations. So we're a very strong school, and students are well prepared to not only pass their certification exam, but to do a very good job, and they come out as very strong clinicians.
I agree with all that. Thank you, Dr. Chappell. U.S. News and World Report says we're number 5, but we think we're number 1. So just be clear about that. And part of the reason that we rate so high is that we have a lot of student support. You do not come to FNU and complete your program on your own. And you've heard that from a lot of online institutions. We have faculty that take you through the didactic portion of your learning, but you also have regional clinical faculty. When you get to your clinical aspect, then they work right along with you and your clinical preceptors. You have academic advisors and clinical advisors, which you have here. We should have introduced, allowed Jamie to introduce yourself. Wave, Jamie, and say hello real quick.
Hey everyone, my name is Jamie. I'm one of the clinical advisors here. So I meet with students at Frontier Bound. Our unit puts on several webinars each term about getting your ducks in a row to find sites and preceptors. We teach you how to use our resources here, one of those being our community maps. So it's a big database which has everything you'd need to know about sites out there. And we're here to be a listening ear and support for you. So hope I get to work with you in the future. Thanks, everyone.
And that is a prime example of the team that you have. Jamie's here this evening to make sure she gets to introduce herself to you, make you aware of what it is that she does. And we do work as a team. We have online student mentoring groups. We have a financial aid department. We have scholarships available, and our online library rivals any other online library anywhere. Another big part of FNU is the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, I think, in this next slide. Oh, before I go to that, yes, we are so excited to have our students here and our graduates here, Karen here with us. So this question is for you 3, because you really can learn a lot about an institution when you talk to the students who've gone there, okay? So the first question we have for our panel is, why did you choose FNP? And why did you choose FNU to get your FNP? So we'll just start with, I won't just start with the alphabet every time. So let's go backwards and start with Catherine.
I never start backwards. It always throws me. I'm like, yes, I'm at the end. So I chose FNP. My background is all women's health. I did a lot of inpatient labor and delivery, high risk antepartum, postpartum, and then my last job was actually working in an outpatient OBGYN office. But I chose FNP because I really have a strong interest in preconception health and following the family like throughout the lifespan. But I really wanted to, I was seeing a lot on the inpatient side of women not feeling very prepared for pregnancy, labor, childbirth, and the postpartum period. And I felt like the root of that was really starting up not just like the first prenatal visit, but starting before then with talking about preconception health, what their goals were, trying to get them as healthy as possible before they conceive to improve maternal and fetal outcomes. So I really wanted to be able to help women feel more prepared in that aspect. But I also really like the idea of increasing access to services within the community. My husband is in the military, so we have moved very frequently. Like the longest I think I've lived somewhere since I graduated undergrad is 2.5 years. So it's really cool because I get to see a lot of different communities and like areas of the country. But just being in areas where there just aren't quite as many services, like Hawaii, for example, we do have a lot of services, but we just don't have so much access to a lot of the specialists. And right now, the clinic that I'm doing my clinicals at is the whole purpose of it is trying to increase access to services to the western side of the island, where everything is kind of downtown in Honolulu, and the patients out here have a hard time getting into town for all their services because it's like an hour plus drive, which sounds ridiculous being on an island, but there are only 3 major highways. So to get anywhere takes a really long time, and they may not have access to transportation. So they're not having their healthcare addressed quite as frequently as we would like to optimize their health. So I really liked that aspect of going into an FNP program and taking on that role of a provider. One of the main reasons I chose FNU specifically was because of the flexibility afforded me with our lifestyle. Going to a traditional brick and mortar school or even other online programs that aren't accredited in every single state was going to be a real big challenge, because since I started the program in 2019, I started the program living in North Carolina, and then we lived in Rhode Island for a year, and we moved here like right before I started Clinical Bound. So if I were in another program, I would have had to potentially start and stop and look to transfer my credits somewhere else. So I really like the flexibility that FNU provided me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. Nikisha, can you answer this question for us?
Yes. I chose to do FNP because I've been an ER nurse for over 12 years, and we see a lot of patients in the area where I live who utilize the ER for primary care. So I feel like I can help the community, especially with the underserved population, to teach them, educate them and advocate for them to do preventative measures and not utilize the ER all the time for their care. And I think a lot of times it's just having that time with them to educate them. And in the ER, that's not a great setting to actually teach them and to be able to get them to the areas where they need to be for as far as preventative care and managing what medical condition that they already have. And FNU, honestly, I had never heard of FNU. One of my coworkers, I was researching one day at work, and he said it to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll look. And then he kept telling me, and then I done my research, and then I spoke with the previous student who was a friend of his, and everything that she said, it was like, I have to go here. I was just not going to be a student behind the computer. The faculty was always there, wanted you to succeed. And that was the most important aspect of this program for me, is that making sure that I succeed regardless of where I am in the world. And that's what I love the most about FNU.
That is fantastic. We're going to get y'all to make commercials for us. Just hold on, okay? Karen, actually somebody who has completed the program and is out. How can you answer these questions for us?
Well, I chose FNP because I have 6 years of pediatric experience and 6 years of adult experience, and FNP was just the natural progression. I've worked in a hospital for 12 years in different roles, and so FNP to me is hopefully I'm going to be in an office building relationships with people, helping them have the best outcomes for their health that they can. I chose FNU. I had, done some searching on the internet. Actually, there's several programs right here where I live, but I just knew I wanted something different. And I, was looking on the internet. I found FNU, and just had the, things I was interested in. It has been a very flexible program. to the point that, when we entered the pandemic, I had friends in other programs who were required to be in front of the computer at certain times every day, or their class time. For our program, the lectures are recorded usually, and if you're not available at the time that they're live, you can watch them later. And that flexibility is, very important to my completion of the program. The culture of caring was really important, and it has, lived to be true, not just words that are said, but, every faculty member I had was interested in us succeeding and was there to answer questions. And I really love that it was nursing focused. Where I did my undergrad, we built a big parking garage and all this stuff, and built a football stadium. And, I had to help pay for those things with the tuition I paid. But for FMU, it's just nursing. So your tuition's reasonable, and it goes just to the program, just to nursing.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think from these three, you can get a real picture. A picture should be starting to form about what FNU really is about. And we're going to talk a little bit more, so hopefully you'll get more information. Thank you for sharing. And I want to tell you a little bit about the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, because one of our paramount focuses right now at FNU is to make sure that all students, all faculty, and all staff are provided with an environment that promotes and encourages your success. No matter what walk of life you come from, we want educational equity, and we want you to feel that you belong. If you see that diagram there, when you put all of the diversity, equity, inclusion things together, in the center is belonging. So we want to make sure that at FNU, not only are we diverse and inclusive and equitable separately, we want to make sure those things work together to make sure that you as a student coming from where you're coming from feel that you belong here. The Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion works hard. This is a hard-working department to make sure that we meet up to our expectations. They have a diversity impact program where they have a conference every year. They also have an Office of DEI. And when you look at the results, we're all about evidence, right? We want evidence-based practice, and we want evidence-based interventions. So in 10 years, FNU, the students of color population, has increased from 9% to 27.8%. That is a huge increase over that span of time. And that is the reason why FNU has been a 4-time winner of what we call the HEED, which is the Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award. We've won that award in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and we don't plan to stop there. So this is a huge focus for FNU at this time.
What degree options do we offer at Frontier? We offer the MSN, so you would enter in as a brand new MSN student. We also offer the postgraduate certificate. This program is for someone who holds a master's as advanced practice nurse, and they can come in and complete the FNP portion of the program. We also offer the DNP. With entry into the MSN program, students have a direct admission into the DNP program, which follows completion of the MSN. Timeframes for completion. We function on the term system at Frontier, which is 11 weeks per 4 times a year, with 2-week break between each term. The MSN takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years, depending on how many courses you take a term. The postgraduate certificate program can take 1 to 1.5 years. And then the DNP program, this is after you finish the MSN, it's 15 to 18 months. And I want to just say, Dr. Artebeer is going to talk about the clinical hours in just a minute, but for the MSN portion of the program, you complete 675 clinical hours. For the DNP portion of the program, you complete 325. So you leave Frontier with 1,000 clinical hours. This is a very well prepared, strong clinician when you finish the DNP program. Let's look at the admission criteria. Students coming into the MSN program need to be an RN with a current active license, a bachelor's degree in any field, a 3.0 cumulative GPA average from the highest nursing degree completed, a good academic standing in your previous coursework, and then 1 year of RN experience. That 1 year of RN experience establishes a foundation on which you build advanced practice. So if you have a nice variety of RN experience, you would be well prepared to enter into the MSN courses. For the students who are postgraduate certificates, they already have an MSN and have a degree as an advanced practice nurse. The admission criteria include they do need to be an RN with a current active license, a master's or higher degree in nursing, a 3.0 cumulative GPA from their last nursing degree, and then they need to be an advanced practice nurse in one of the following specialties. And you see we have several, and they range from adult and geriatrics all the way to neonates, including women's health, psych NP, acute care nurse practitioner. So we take a wide range of postgraduate certificate students. Upcoming application deadlines. Let's take a look at these dates. The first deadline, the next deadline is January 19th, 2022 to begin coursework on July 4th, so summer term. And the second deadline is April 20th, 2022 to begin coursework in October 3rd. So you've got some time if you want to apply to get your application completed. And here are the steps of the application. You submit an online application. There are essays that you submit, your most current resume. You will need 3 professional references, your transcripts, and then if you hold a bachelor's in non-nursing degree, you have to complete a portfolio, which is a written assignment to complete. The tuition at Frontier is competitive. Our current tuition is $636 per credit hour, which is competitive. And we update that when changes are made, and you can find that by coming to Frontier Nursing University's website.
I'm the clinical director, so talking about clinical is what I love to do. So FNU's program is front loaded so that you get all of your didactics first, and then you experience your clinical after you've had all of your didactic coursework. So Dr. Chappell mentioned that the MSN is 675 clinical hours, and that if you're going full-time, doing 40 hours of clinical a week, is about 16 weeks of clinical. Most students are working, and so they're going part-time, so that would be extended out. Another flexible thing about FNU is you get to set how fast you want to go. We have a minimum of hours you have to get, and we have a maximum, but you can do what works for you within that range. So there are some students who will move through quickly, and there's some students who will hang with us for just a little while longer. If you're a PGC, that's 540 hours, so it averages out to full-time 14 weeks of clinical. And then if you decide to stick around for the companion DNP, that's an additional 360 clinical hours, and you can come out with your doctorate. The way we have our clinical set up is that it's competency based. You have to get a certain number of different types of visit types, patient populations, and the experiences are across the lifespan. So you get from newborn all the way to geriatrics in our program. So we're going to pull our students back in here again, and I guess I'll pick on Nikisha first this time. And the question for you this time is, what is one piece of advice for someone considering becoming an FNP student?
Organization. You definitely have to be organized. I have a Google Calendar on my phone. On my iPad, I have a notebook that I would like to write down my assignments. And then I had another one just to make sure that I wouldn't miss it, make sure I would miss my deadline. So organization is definitely one of the things, and do not procrastinate, especially on some of these assignments. They look very easy, and they are, but some of those assignments are very, very detailed, and it takes you a lot of time. So if you get rid of the procrastination and get organized, you'll do great in this program.
That is excellent advice. And I sure hope you guys wrote that down. I wrote it down for myself, Nikisha. Thank you for that. Karen, what about you?
I think you need to look at your life and make sure that it's the right time for you. My kids were grown before I started the program, and that was really important for me to be successful because I did have to work full-time while I was in school. And I do, sometimes hear people really struggling and they have small children at home and trying to make it through the program. It's not that it's not doable. It's just, it takes a lot of discipline. And like Nikisha said, organization. And I just don't know if I personally could have done it with my kids, still young and at home. But I think those are, strong pieces of advice.
Wonderful. My sister would tell me that I farmed my kids out when I was in graduate school. So you have to have a lot of support if you have those little ones, but it certainly is doable. Catherine, what advice do you have?
So definitely organization, like Karen and Nikisha have said, and then kind of piggybacking off of Karen. I had a baby last year, so I've done 2 moves during this program. I've had a baby. Definitely easier before having a kid to do the program, but it is doable. I'm living proof that you can do it. My big things are be gracious with yourself, because you're going back to the role of student. And for myself and for a lot of my peers, we've been out of school for 5 years or more, and we've become very proficient in our role as an RN. We've become like experts like on our floors and our clinics, and going back to the role of student is really difficult. And acknowledging the fact that you are now a novice, that's something that I really struggled with, especially going to like clinical, like, okay, it's okay that I don't know everything because this is all brand new. I have not been a provider for years. It's okay that I need to ask questions and I don't know things. So being gracious with yourself in that aspect. And then just making sure that when you do have your 2-week breaks, enjoy them, give yourself time to mentally decompress and reset so that you're ready to go for the next term. And just making sure that you are still doing self-care, because that's huge. And it's really easy in the midst of the term to just kind of let it all consume you and focus all of your time and energy on school and work and family obligations, but just don't forget the self-care as well.
Well said. That's some good advice. Very good advice.
It was excellent advice, and it is so appropriate for your life as a student and also your life as a working nurse practitioner. We do have a new campus in Versailles, Kentucky. These pictures are some of the buildings on the campus. I'd like to point out the picture on the top left. That is one of the 3 student dorms that we have on campus. And this is where students stay when they come to frontier bound and when they come to clinical bound. We also have educational buildings, which is the middle picture and the bottom, that are specifically for frontier bound sessions and clinical bound sessions. Student services and the welcome center is on the top right. So we have a beautiful campus that we are now opened, and we have students coming to campus. And it's a beautiful building. It sits 6 miles from the Bluegrass Airport in Kentucky. So getting to and from campus is very easy now. And I'd like to bring the panel back and ask them this question. What do you wish you had known before you started at Frontier in the Family Nurse Practitioner program? And let's go to Karen first.
I think I wish I had known that it was going to be demanding. I mean, kind of like Catherine said earlier, I had 12 years of experience, or I do now have 12 years of experience as an RN. And, I had been a nurse for a long time, and I just felt like it was going to be kind of an easy transition, but it has been challenging. It's certainly doable, but it's just a different role, a different way of looking at healthcare. And so that was really surprising to me it's not that my experience didn't help me, it certainly helped me, but it's just a different way of looking at things. And it is a transition period. You do have to really understand that you are a novice again, and be willing to ask those questions and take advice.
That's very true, Karen. It is a time of transition and growth in your professional life. Nikisha, how would you answer that question?
I would have to agree with Karen about it. That was one of my biggest challenges, was transitioning. And I still feel sometimes I have a difficult time in transitioning, mainly too, because I'm in an active role as an RN. And when I'm at work, I try not to overstep my boundaries because I'm still a nurse, but I'm learning. So I do ask questions, and I do give myself grace if I don't know something. Initially, I felt like I needed to know because I had all these nursing years experience under my belt. But the reality is I'm back at a novice to learn. So that's been very challenging, but I'm learning as I go along to accept everything that comes with it, because I'm in my learning environment, and this is where I have the time to, if I make a mistake, and learn from it. So
very good advice, Nikisha. Thank you. And Catherine, well, how would you answer this question? What do you wish you had known?
So there are two things that I wish I would have known. Like Karen said in the first student panel question, I know that it's very strongly emphasized throughout the program, in every single class that you take, that the faculty are there to support you and they really want you to succeed. And for the longest time, I just kind of blew it off and I was like, yeah, sure, like that's the day. But they really do. They really do want you to succeed. They are really there to support you. So if you ever have any question, concern, don't be afraid to reach out. And the emphasis is really on helping you understand the fundamentals and understand why we're doing certain things, why we're looking for this lab or this imaging to help you formulate a diagnosis and create a treatment plan. It's really about understanding the material and being able to translate that into patient education and appropriate, safe, competent care. It's not about helping you learn the material so that you can pass a test and have really good pass rates for boards. That's not the goal at all. It's really to make sure that you understand everything, you're safe and you're competent in your practice and you're improving patient outcomes. So that's one thing that I wish I would have known a little bit earlier, because I may have reached out a little bit more to my faculty, but coming from a large university for my undergraduate program, is always like, okay, like I'll figure it out, it's fine. But the small class size really allows that intimate interaction with the faculty and with your peers as well. The other thing that I wanted to just kind of share is it's really hard to not compare yourself to anyone else in the program, especially you get really close with the cohort that you go to frontier bound and clinical bound with. But just remember, everyone moves at their own pace. You have all of the cushion to be able to complete the program in the time frame that works best for you and your lifestyle, which is the beauty of this program. Like I said, I had a baby in the middle of this program. I took a term off so that I could focus on adjusting to the new role of motherhood and give myself time to get back into the mind frame of doing school. And it didn't really adjust my time frame at all. Like I was still with people within my class, because we all have different things happening in life. We all have to make adjustments. And it was all okay. It was fine. So again, the flexibility is huge, but also just don't compare yourself with the other students with if anyone's moving faster or slower than you are, because at the end of the day, you're moving at the pace that's going to be best for you, your learning experience, your family. And the end goal is to make sure that, again, you're a safe, competent provider who can improve patient outcomes and reach your goals as a FNP. So I just wanted to share that because I know that we all struggle with comparing and like, oh, what did you get on this? How did you do? How fast long are you moving? But at the end of the day, it's not important. The important thing is that you get the education that you came here for and you meet your goals.
Thank you, Catherine. It's very wise advice. And you described one of the strengths that we have at Frontier, and that is the commitment of our faculty and staff to student success. It's very earnest and it's very real, and it is a strong, strong strength of our student success here at Frontiers. Thank you, but thank you all three. And this is one of our graduates. Is she happy about she's graduating? Do you think she's happy? And here's a little motivational quote for you. Success doesn't come to you, you go to it. And this quote is from an African-American woman named Marvin Collins, who is a well-known educator. And Google her, if you will, because she's really impressive woman and has a really remarkable career, but she had some really revolutionary philosophy about education and how to bring it to those who need it the most. So a really interesting person, but you go to it. It doesn't come to you.
Dr. Chappell, can I
Yes.
say something before you go to the questions real quick?
Yes,
I
of course.
just would like for the students to hear, you've heard the word flexibility a ton of times tonight from the student panelists, and that comes from our leader, Dr. Chappell. Her motto for us with this year, with all of the things that have been going on, has been flexibility while maintaining integrity. And that's what FNU does with each and every student. And that's one of the really strong things about FNU is that they live out what they say out of their mouths. And I think that that comes a lot from our leadership. When we say that we have a culture of caring, you heard the students say that it's not just talk, it actually is a culture of caring. And those things, I think, you know, it kind of rolls downhill. So I wanted to say that real quick.
Thank you, Dr. Arterberry. And that integrity is a personal integrity, but it's also integrity to our courses and to our program, that we hold a high standard for the program and we do not waver on that, because that's the quality of your education. And we want you the very best prepared that you can be. We're thinking about your future patients. So we hold the integrity of the program and the courses as very, very dear. Thank you, Dr. Arterberry, for adding that. We do have a team of professionals to help. We have some here with you, but there are many, many more who will help you along your pathway at Frontier. But we would like to hear any questions that you may have now. We've also given you some email addresses: admissions@frontier.edu, clinical advising at frontier.edu, and then financial aid at frontier.edu. But please turn on your microphones and let us see if we can answer your questions while we're here. Or you can type your questions into the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them that way too.
Hi, this is Francesca. I was just wondering about with the flexibility. I know there's full-time and part-time options. How many credits are required each quarter or semester to take?
Okay, well, we do have a variety of plan of studies for students, and we generally advise students to take 2 classes a term. 2 3-hour classes is 6 hours at the graduate level, which is busy enough. We do have some students who take the choice to take 3 classes a term, which is much busier. Occasionally, we will allow a student to take 1 course a term, but only like 1 term, 2 terms maybe, depending on what their circumstances are. But we cap the number of courses at 3 courses, which would actually be 9 hours at the graduate level. Any more than that, and you're going to be stretched a little bit too thin. And those are your choices.
And just remember too that when you come for graduate study, and we are a nursing university, everything that we're giving you, you're going to need it. So you don't want to come in with an attitude to rush through, because this is your time to absorb, to learn, and to grow. So you want to make sure that you have the time and the ability to put the work and effort into each course so you can get out of it what you need, because you're going to use it again down the road. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Francesca.
You're welcome.
What other questions do you have? We're more than happy to answer any questions. And you don't just have to ask myself, Dr. Arterberry, or Jamie Wheeler. You could ask the student panel any questions that you'd like to. I hope, panelists, that's okay. I'm volunteering you, but I know that you'd be willing to answer questions for prospective students.
Hi, this is Yelena in the admissions office. I just wanted to let everyone know that we also have 3 admission officers here. So if you have any questions specific to admission, the admission process, getting started, and how it all works, we're also here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, well, Yelena, here's a question for you in the chat box. After applying, how long before we know if we're accepted?
Okay, so if you're applying for the summer term, for example, we're currently accepting applications for that term. The application deadline is January 19th. So typically about 6 weeks after the deadline is when we send admission decisions. So if you're applying for the summer term, you can expect to hear a decision back probably towards the end of February.
We're happy to follow up with any questions you may have. You can email either myself or Dr. Arterberry. Dr. Arterberry, I'm volunteering you. Or Dr. Arterberry, we're happy to answer questions about the program. And you've got a lot of resources that you can use in addition to us. How many students typically make up a class? In the FNP program, we generally admit around 55 to 60 per term. And we admit 4 times a year. Are there any service trip options, or would these count for clinical hours? No, and I'm assuming that you're talking about out of the United States. No, we do not do clinicals outside of the United States. It is certainly a wonderful idea, and it's certainly something you should think about when you finish your time at Frontier, but we do not have that as part of the clinical hours in our program. Any other questions?
Scott asks, would I be able to complete all of my coursework overseas?
You could complete the didactic part overseas, but once you start your clinical hours, you really need to be in the United States. Dr. Arterberry, would you agree with that?
That is correct. Currently, we have regional clinical faculty who go out and actually visit our students. And so right now that is limited to the contiguous United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
And Dr. Arterberry, here's a question. This may have been mentioned, but y'all assist with finding preceptors. I have a few lined up that have heard so many horror stories about finding preceptors.
Jamie, can you help alleviate some of her horror story experiences?
Yes, yes. So I always tell students, never take academic advice from your friends, right? Because you never know what program they're in, what track they're in, how early they started this process. So When you come to Frontier Bound, you would meet with our unit. So we have the clinical outreach session while you're at Frontier Bound, and we would talk to you about the resources. So like I mentioned earlier, we do webinars each term. We love meeting one-on-one with our students. We talk to you about the things that we have in place. So like I mentioned, our community map, which has over 10,000 sites and preceptors on there. We will show you how to navigate that. Now, you are correct. We don't place you, but we will help you know how to reach out. We'll help you know how to ask the questions of the site. We have practice worksheets for you, which gives you ideas of questions when you're out and about talking to people. So you do have lots of resources in place to help you. Hopefully
Catherine,
that answers your question.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Did you want to add something, Catherine?
I did. I just wanted to share my experience with finding a preceptor because not to keep mentioning that I moved, but I had to deal with trying to set up clinicals for Hawaii while I was in Rhode Island, which there is a huge time gap there, 6 hours. And with trying to set up clinicals during COVID was really difficult because Hawaii really shut down. And a lot of the facilities were not accepting students unless they were current employees, which I couldn't be because I was living in a different state. But the regional clinical faculty were really helpful. And I actually had 2 different RCFs since I was living in North Carolina for part of the program. And then when I found out I was moving to Hawaii, I got assigned a different RCF. And both were very helpful in helping me try to establish clinical sites, because I was even looking at staying behind with my parents in Pennsylvania so that I could get my clinicals completed. So that was, again, different RCFs. So if you have any questions or concerns about it, your clinical faculty are really helpful. And in addition to the community map, they had a little spreadsheet that they kept of which offices they had worked with in the past and specific preceptors with all of their contact information so that I could reach out to them. So it sounds really daunting and like it's kind of overwhelming thinking about, oh, I have to set up all of my clinical sites myself, but it really isn't a terrible experience. And again, just ask for help and the faculty will be more than happy to help you with it.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Catherine, during COVID, because it added a wrench into things, but you are not out there by yourself. Jamie just described what they're going to start working with you as soon as you're admitted into the program. Your RCF picks up and has contacts. They are seeing people all the time in clinical. They know these regions where you are. You're going to utilize your own contacts that you have, but we're going to work with you to make sure you get what you need. And there was a question about how many preceptors for FNP. Most students need a pediatric office, a women's health office, and then your family practice or internal medicine offices to get all of the visit types that you need. Now, if you have a fabulous family practice that sees everything from newborn to geriatrics and they are on target, you can do it that way. But most students need that specialty pediatric and women's health site to get all of their visits in.
Dr. Arterberry, there's a question about how many hours a week is doable while completing the program. Kiva, are you asking about clinical hours? And Dr. Arterberry, how many clinical hours? Talk about the guidelines for the clinical hours.
Sure. When you're in clinical, the fewest hours a week you can do, and you have to really consider this when you're looking at what your obligations are. The minimum number of hours per week is 20 hours a week. So that's a little chunk. You know, most of students can do that in 2 days or so, but that's a big chunk out of your work day. So a lot of our students do have to adjust their work schedules. When you get to 7/16, it's required that you do 30 hours a week. That's almost a full-time job. So you have to really, for that last term or those last hours, be prepared to have somebody else wash the clothes, cook the dishes, or do whatever, work on the weekends, or however you need to do it. But even when you're coming in, you need to think about that. And the maximum hours we allow per week is 40 hours a week. We do have some students who are able to stop working and do the 40 hours a week and go right through. I think that's not the majority of our students. The majority do somewhere between the 20 and 30 hours until they get to 716. Karen, did you have
Dr.
something to
Arterberry,
add?
can I?
Oh, yes, Nick. Let me get Karen, then you, Nikisha, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, the first so many semesters, depending on which, timeline you use, you're doing just didactic work. And I worked full time, just doing the didactic stuff without an issue. When I got to clinical, it was a little more challenging, but I was creative and saved up my vacation time. And the first few months I was in clinical, I used a vacation day like every pay period to help offset some of those hours. So I wasn't just killing myself. But then toward the end, when I was doing more hours, I did drop down, to like 2 days a week and sometimes 1 day a week. But you have time to kind of think about that and prepare for it. It's not at the very beginning of the program. That's another thing I like about FMU. Some of my friends in other programs are doing clinicals all through the program, and it makes it really challenging to be able to complete their clinical time and do the didactic at the same time.
Thank you, Karen. Nikisha, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes. So like Karen said, the flexibility. I am currently still working full-time. I work full-time the entire time I started my program, but starting the winter term, I will have to go down to 3 days a week, but I also only work weekends. So I just do my schedule on the weekend in case I have to do a day or so. And then some days I just take a day off during the week just for that mental health day from work and school, because you still have to have that work-life balance. But like Karen said, you have the time to kind of like plan it out. And that's kind of how I plan mine out, just so that I can have that flexibility of when I go to clinicals. My current location, like today I'm at pediatrics, and we normally do like anywhere from 9 to 10 hours, just depending on if they schedule sick visits after 5 o'clock. So, and I have to drive an hour and some away. So all of that I have to take in consideration when I'm making my work schedule. So I try not to do too much during the week, but if you can work on the weekends, I would definitely suggest it, because it will be very difficult to finish this program if you have to work during the week.
Kiva, I hope that helped answer your question. Thank you very much, Nikisha and Karen. Let's, here's a question for us. Are students able to drop from full-time to part-time as needed, or do you have to commit to one or the other? No, you don't have to commit. There is some flexibility in moving from full-time to part-time, or vice versa. With respect to prereqs, we do not waive prereqs, but there is some flexibility. Say, for example, that you started your first term and you've taken 3 courses and you realized that it was too much, that your grades were suffering and you needed to drop back. Well, you could drop one of those courses, keep 2 of them, and that course would move to further in your, probably the next term in your program of study. But there is some flexibility. We teach every course every term. So you don't have to wait a year for a course to come back around like in some other schools. If you withdraw from a course, you can pick it up and take it the following term. So there is flexibility in, if you start full-time, you can go to part-time. Nikisha, I see your message. You have to leave. Thank you so very much for coming and participating. It was really valuable. Okay, Lauren, you have a question about pediatrics. I do not have any experience. adult oncology, I'm where I'm going to feel terribly behind. Well, I have to tell you that many students will say that pediatrics is what they feel not quite so prepared and maybe a little worrisome about working with children. And so not everybody who comes into our program has experience with pediatrics. So we have a very good pediatric course. We have a very nicely structured program for the pediatric portion of your clinical hours, where you will leave this program prepared to take care of well and sick children. So don't hesitate to think, oh, I've never taken care of kids, I can't do this. Oh, yes, you can, because many people come into the program and they'll say, Dr. Chappell, do we have to take pediatrics? Well, yes, if you want the degree, you have to take pediatrics. And they come through the program and they like it. And it's a new population that they love to take care of. So I understand your apprehension, but do not let it be something that keeps you from applying and coming to the program.
There are many emergency rooms that hire NPs in the fast track or that part of the emergency room, and they want FNPs because they have the pediatric experience. So it can stand you in good stead.
Yes, and I see Kiva's telling us that her background is geriatrics. That is perfect, because what is the fastest growing population in the United States? It's the geriatric population. And in my experience, and Dr. Arterberry, I bet you would agree with me, the geriatric population is a population where a nurse practitioner can make a tremendous difference, whether they're at home by themselves or living with their family, whether they're in assisted care or if they're in the nursing home. This is a population where we can make a huge difference in the quality of their lives. So good for you, Kiva. That's valuable experience. Okay, Dr. Arterberry, I think our time is almost up here. Audience, it was very great to have you here, and I hope we were able to answer your questions, and we're ready to answer more if you have any. I'd like to thank our panel, Nikisha and Karen and Catherine. Thank you so much for coming and bringing your knowledge of the program. And I'd like to thank Jamie Wheeler and Jelena and anybody else who's come from the admission office, and Dr. Arterberry, my partner in, I won't say it, Dr. Arterberry.
Crime, that's what she calls me, her partner in crime.
But we are partners in administration of the FNP program. So I hope you found this to be helpful, and we would love to see you apply and come to the FNP program.
Thank you guys for coming.